How to stop being afraid of the world, breaking the chains of fear inside you. Imagine a life where fear no longer controls your steps. In this powerful video, DepthMind invites you to rethink everything you've believed about fear, what it is, how it traps you, and most importantly, how to break free. Drawing insights from psychology, philosophy, and mindfulness, we explore why fear, once a survival tool, has become the invisible force sabotaging your growth. You'll learn why avoiding fear strengthens it, how catastrophizing distorts your reality, and how conscious action, even while afraid, is the real path to freedom. Fear doesn't disappear by waiting for the perfect moment. It disappears when you dare to move despite it. Stay with us. Because once you see fear for what it truly is, you'll realize, the life you dream of is not on the other side of fear, it begins exactly when you walk through it. How would your life change if fear no longer held you back? Imagine waking up one morning and feeling completely free. No more underlying fear woven into every decision. No more hesitation at the threshold of new opportunities. You step into the world with an open heart, welcoming the unknown like an eager traveler awaiting discovery. But take a look back. How many times have you abandoned a dream simply out of fear of failure? How many times have you stayed silent when you should have spoken up? How many times have you remained in your comfort zone, worried about what might go wrong? Fear isn't just a fleeting emotion. It seeps into every decision, every tiny action, quietly shaping the course of an entire life. Fear, at its core, is a survival instinct. It helped our ancestors survive in a world filled with threats. Yet in the modern world, where real danger is rare, fear quietly dominates the mind, creating invisible barriers we don't even recognize. The real question is no longer, how can I eliminate fear, but how much of my life have I allowed fear to steal? Because beyond fear lies not just safety, but a fuller version of yourself, stronger, freer, and more alive. The truth about fear. From survival instinct to mental chains. To free ourselves from fear, we must first understand what it truly is. Fear is not an enemy designed to harm us. It is an ancient survival mechanism, deeply embedded in the brain structure from the days when our ancestors hunted and took shelter in perilous environments. When facing predators or hostile tribes, fear triggered the body. Rapid heartbeat, tense muscles, quickened breath, preparing for fight or flight. Today, we rarely encounter such primal threats. Instead, fear is triggered by social situations, fear of failure, rejection, or loss. The brain still reacts as if we're facing mortal danger, even if it's just a difficult conversation or a new opportunity. Philosopher Seneca once said, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." His words reveal a difficult truth: most of what we fear is not actual danger but the stories we invent in our minds, tragedies we imagine, unseen anxieties, worst-case scenarios that never come true. This is how the brain forges invisible chains. When fear rules us, we no longer respond to reality but to illusions we've created. Our freedom is stolen bit by bit, not by the external world, but by the invisible shackles within our own minds. Understanding this is the first step toward breaking the chains, to realize that fear, however powerful, is only a part of us, and does not have to be the one steering the wheel. When the mind fabricates disaster, the trap of catastrophizing. If fear is a basic instinct, catastrophizing, the habit of magnifying risks into disasters, is the trap modern minds build for themselves. It's when a small issue spirals into a catastrophic scenario where everything falls apart and the imagined cost seems unbearable. You worry before a presentation. Your mind whispers, if I mess up, everyone will laugh, and my career will be ruined. You hesitate before a new decision. A silent voice says, if I fail, I'll lose everything and never recover. These stories don't need evidence. They breed from deep-seated insecurity. From the need to control the unknown, from the fear of losing acceptance, love, or self-worth. Catastrophizing works silently but effectively. It turns small risks into looming threats, making us react as if facing real calamity. Fear then becomes disproportionate to reality, magnifying failure, distorting self-image, and paralyzing action. The irony is this. It is not actual disaster but the fear of it that ruins opportunities. When we fear failure too much, we refuse to try. When we fear heartbreak too much, we avoid love. Thus, even when disaster never strikes, we have already lost the most precious things in life. Recognizing the trick of catastrophizing is a turning point. When we realize that fear is exaggerating, we can step back, breathe, and ask, is the worst-case scenario really as bad as I imagine? And even if it happens, could I survive it? The answer often awakens us. We are stronger than fear wants us to believe. Escaping the trap of catastrophizing isn't just breaking a psychological habit, it's a healing journey, learning to trust our resilience. Learning to see life through honest eyes rather than fear's distorted lens. From escapee to fear tamer, the key lies in the relationship. Most of us live in a state of running from fear. We try to ignore it, suppress it, or avoid situations that might trigger it. But this very denial only strengthens fear, embedding it deeper into our minds. Carl Jung once said, "What you resist, persists." Fear operates the same way. When we treat it as an enemy, we unknowingly feed it. The more we try to banish it from our minds, the more it haunts us. Ironically, by avoiding fear, we become its prisoners. Instead of resisting, we must change our relationship with fear. See it as a signal, a reminder that something inside us needs attention. Engage with fear like an old companion, patiently listening, but not letting it drive us. Every fear carries a lesson. Fear of failure teaches perseverance. Fear of rejection reminds us of self-worth. Fear of loss urges us to cherish what we have. When we are brave enough to sit with our fear, to touch what we usually flee from, we are no longer escapees, we become tamers of our own insecurity. The difference between those controlled by fear and those who master it is not the absence of fear. Everyone feels fear. The difference lies in how they treat it, with rejection, or with understanding. Breaking the shell of safety, how to step into the growth zone. Human instinct always seeks safety. The comfort zone is where we feel familiar, where outcomes are predictable, where risks and failures are minimized. But the price of such safety is stagnation. There is no real growth, no vibrant life within a world wrapped too tightly. Beyond the comfort zone lies the growth zone, a space filled with challenge, uncertainty, and fear. Yet it is precisely here that hidden potential can sprout. Every time you step beyond familiar limits, even a small step, you expand the borders of your soul. However, leaving the comfort zone doesn't mean throwing yourself into panic. Between comfort and panic lies a middle ground. The growth zone. It is where you embrace manageable challenges, hard enough to stretch you, but not so overwhelming as to break you. Start with small actions. A conversation you've been avoiding. A decision you keep postponing. A choice you know, deep down, would transform you if you dared to take it. Growth does not come from eliminating fear. It comes from walking alongside it, step by step, with awareness and trust in your own resilience. When you dialogue with fear setting and rewriting your destiny. When faced with fear, our first instinct is often to avoid or ignore it. Yet strangely, the more we avoid it, the more fear grows silently within. Instead, try a different approach, engage directly with your fear, expose it under the light of awareness. One of the most effective techniques is fear setting, identifying and writing down what you fear. Instead of letting your mind create vague phantoms, you consciously name each fear. Imagine the worst-case scenario, and find ways to deal with it. Ask yourself. What's the worst that could happen? Would it really be irrecoverable if it did? What steps could I take to minimize the damage? And if everything fell apart, what could I learn from it? When you write down the answers, you realize that most of what we fear is not invincible. In fact, many fears are exaggerated shadows, much larger in the mind than in reality. Fear setting isn't about eliminating fear. It's about facing it, understanding it, and reclaiming your agency. When you rewrite the story in your mind, from nameless terror to manageable scenarios, you are also rewriting your destiny, from victim to creator. No one conquers fear alone, the power of a healing community. On the journey of confronting fear, we often tend to withdraw. We believe fear is a sign of weakness, that we must overcome it alone. And that sharing it would diminish us in others' eyes. But it is this very isolation that allows fear to grow stronger. Fear thrives most in the darkness of silence. When we trap fear within our minds, it becomes distorted and uncontrollable. But when we dare to bring it into the light and share it with others, its grip begins to loosen. A safe community, where you can express your anxieties, your wounds, your hidden fears, is fertile ground for healing. There, you are no longer a solitary fighter battling your inner demons. You find witnessing, empathy, and reminders that you are not alone on this path. Think of those who changed history with their courage. Rosa Parks, in her moment of defiance against injustice, did not stand alone in spirit. She had a community behind her, a shared belief that her action would be understood and supported. You don't have to grit your teeth and conquer fear in isolation. Through connection and sharing, you not only help yourself heal but also create space for others to find their strength along their journey too. Facing the inevitable. Fear of death and true freedom. If we peel back the layers of fear, at the deepest level, we always find a primal fear, the fear of death. Not only the death of the body but also the death of the ego. Of reputation, of the familiar things we cling to. We fear failure because it threatens our honor. We fear rejection because it challenges our self-worth. We fear change because it awakens the sense of loss. Beneath all these fears echoes the anxiety. Why about endings, and deep down, the mind equates them with death. But it is precisely our avoidance of endings that binds us. Trying to preserve something forever in a world of constant change only leads to suffering. The philosopher Socrates once accepted death as a natural part of life, seeing it not as a defeat but as liberation. Accepting death doesn't render life meaningless. On the contrary, it bestows profound value upon it. When we realize every moment is temporary, we cherish the present more deeply. When we accept that nothing lasts forever, we no longer fear loss as we once did. True freedom doesn't come from controlling change or resisting death. It comes from opening ourselves to impermanence, living each day not in fear of what may be lost but in gratitude for what is here now. Awakening through mindfulness, facing fear instead of fleeing. Usually, when fear arises, our instinct is to run. We busy ourselves, immerse in work, entertainment, or even unhealthy relationships, anything to avoid facing that emotion. But avoidance doesn't make fear disappear. It only drives it deeper into our unconscious, where it quietly influences every choice we make. Mindfulness teaches us a completely different approach. Don't run. Stop. Create space within to allow fear to exist fully, without judgment, without resistance. When you feel fear, instead of asking, "How do I stop being afraid?" ask, "What is this fear trying to tell me?" Notice the sensations in your body, the quickened heartbeat, the tight stomach, the constricted throat. Name the emotion. This is fear. Even this simple act helps you step out of the emotional spiral. Scientific studies have shown that mindfulness practice can calm the amygdala, the brain's fear center, and strengthen the prefrontal cortex, the region responsible for rational thinking and self-regulation. In other words, you gradually train your brain not to react instinctively to fear but to respond with conscious awareness. Awakening is not the absence of fear. Awakening is standing still amid emotional storms, recognizing fear's presence without being swept away. It is learning to listen to fear as a messenger, not letting it drive your life. Walking through fear, the only way to live a worthy life. There is a simple but often forgotten truth. You cannot go around fear to reach the life you long for. The only way is through it. No avoidance, no delay, no waiting for the perfect moment. Only action, even while the heart still trembles. Walking through fear doesn't mean being fearless. It means accepting that fear will walk beside you on this journey. It means understanding that fear is not a sign you're going the wrong way, but oft and a sign you're nearing a breakthrough in your growth. Think back to the most meaningful moments of your life, the times you dared to speak the truth, to start something new. To love even with the risk of heartbreak. Weren't they all accompanied by fear? Yet you moved forward. And it was the act of moving that made you grow, not whether you succeeded or failed. Each time you choose action despite fear, another piece of the old chains falls away. Each hesitant step you take builds a new faith, that you can withstand uncertainty. That you can live a life wide open, not suffocated by imagined failure. Ask yourself, what would your life look like if fear no longer made your decisions? What doors would open? What potentials would awaken? And what version of yourself is waiting on the other side of that boundary? The answer only comes when you are brave enough to walk through the hidden wounds behind fear. The journey of inner healing. Fear is not just a fleeting emotion. It is a veil that conceals deeper wounds, unhealed traumas from the past. Every time we fear failure, it may echo back to a moment of childhood humiliation. Every time we fear rejection, it may revive the memory of being abandoned without explanation. If we only confront fear at the surface, we are merely soothing the symptoms. To truly heal, we must have the courage to dig into the root. We must dare to ask, beneath this fear, what am I trying to protect? Within this insecurity, is there a part of me longing to be understood, loved, and accepted? Healing doesn't come from denying fear or forcing ourselves to power through it. Healing begins when we sit with ourselves, with patience, gentleness, and without judgment. When we dare to embrace our wounded, fragile parts as we would a lost child, we initiate the deepest process of self-repair. No one else can give you true healing but yourself. Others may accompany you, may listen, but only you can face the most hidden corners of your soul. And here lies the paradox. It is precisely when we dare to face the pain instead of avoiding it, precisely when we embrace the wounded parts instead of rejecting them, that the wound truly begins to dissolve. Fear gradually loses its power, making room for a self that is more mature, freer, and more whole. Why humans fear, a truth few dare to face. Fear is not merely a personal issue. It is woven into the very structure of human society. Humans fear because we were born into a world where survival always carried risk. Where acceptance by the tribe was once a matter of life and death. To be rejected, to be judged, once meant being cast out, and isolation could lead to death. Even though times have changed, that survival imprint remains etched in our nervous system. Today, no one is banished to the wilderness for making a mistake. But the brain still reacts to minor failures as if they were mortal threats. Modern society, instead of soothing fear, amplifies it. Media, comparison culture, and the pressure to succeed all fuel a pervasive fear, fear of falling behind, fear of not being good enough. Fear of being unloved if expectations aren't met. We are forced to wear masks of perfection, to hide the real insecurities within. Understanding this helps us release self-blame. Fear is not a personal failure. It is a collective legacy that each of us carries. And when we realize that our fear is also the fear of many, we open ourselves to compassion. We not only heal ourselves, we contribute to healing the world, one action, one glance, one deeper acceptance at a time. When fear becomes the map to a meaningful life. The paradox is that where we fear the most is often where the door to the deepest growth lies. Fear is not a signal to retreat. It is a rough map, pointing to the parts of ourselves that remain unopened, the potential still buried beneath layers of doubt and pain. You fear stepping onto the stage because deep down you long to have your voice heard. You fear entering a new relationship because you yearn for genuine connection. You fear change because within you burns a dream to live life on your own terms. Fear doesn't prevent you from finding meaning. It tests you. Do you have the courage to move toward the place your soul most longs for? Instead of asking, how do I stop being afraid, ask, what is this fear showing me about the path I need to take? When we listen to fear with curiosity instead of defensiveness, we begin to understand that behind the closed doors lie the most vibrant, authentic parts of ourselves waiting to be claimed. Every time we move through fear, we do not merely achieve an outer success. We touch a deeper layer of being, where we no longer live to avoid failure but live to fully embody who we are meant to become. Dangerous misconceptions about fear, and the truth that awakens us. Deep within our culture and society, we grow up with dangerous misconceptions about fear. That fear is a sign of weakness. That strong people feel no fear. That if you are afraid, you should stop. These ideas are not only wrong, they sever the inner journey of growth for countless people. The truth is, everyone feels fear. Courage is not the absence of fear, it is choosing to act even while trembling. True strength lies not in suppressing emotion, but in walking with it, mindfully, sincerely, and compassionately toward oneself. Another harmful myth: if you feel fear, you're not ready. In reality, fear does not appear to block you, it appears to test your commitment to your own dream. Fear is the last voice of the old self before you step into a more evolved version of yourself. We must awaken from the illusion of invincibility. Not numbness, not cold detachment, but the courage to face real emotions is what builds true inner strength. Once we see this truth, we are no longer imprisoned by false standards of bravery. We allow ourselves to be afraid and, at the same time, allow ourselves to move forward, and that is the truest beauty of a mature soul. The true journey is only beginning. Fear will never completely disappear from your life. But that no longer matters. Because you have learned to live with it, walk through it, and grow because of it. You have stopped judging yourself for trembling, stopped demanding perfection from yourself in a world that never stops changing. Now, each time you feel fear, it is no longer a sign of failure. It is a call for you to open your heart, to surpass old limitations, and to live closer to your true essence. It is a reminder that you are still alive. Still longing, still daring to love, to believe, to move forward. Life does not wait for readiness. Life only asks one thing: the courage, however small, to take a step toward the light even while your heart quivers. Each trembling step carries a silent commitment: I choose life. I choose truth. I choose myself. And from that moment, you are no longer someone controlled by fear. You become the one who dares to rewrite the story of your life, with your own trembling, resolute hands.